Hello, my friends, hello, and welcome once again to stately Vaughan Manor, where Roger and I have returned to talk about Roger's Cheap Old Book Club. Every month, Roger will pick a book for his book club, and it's the cheapest book club of all. Every book is in the public domain, so you can find them all at Project Gutenberg for free. That's really cheap, Roger. So every month, he picks a book, and every month we talk about it here on this Dopey channel. And I also have a Dopey Discord as well, and you can hop on there and talk with others who are reading these books. And those are some really interesting conversations. And this month, well, no, I take that back. We're talking about last month's book because I'm so late with this video. I'm really late with this. I'm sorry. You could have done this video on your own. You don't have to drag me in all your videos. Every video he thinks I should be in it. Fine. Blame me. So it is kind of my fault. I got caught up in other things, but we are, at long last, talking about May's pick for Roger's Cheap Old Book Club, which is The Three Impostors by Arthur Machen. Arthur Machen, the great horror and fantasy writer, Arthur Machen. I have all of his stuff here in the 3-volume set from Hippocampus Press. This is Arthur Machen Collected Fiction. This is the first volume that has the three impostors in it. This is 1888 to 1895. And The Three Impostors is a short episodic novel. It's a novel that tells a story, but the story that it tells, as that story unfolds, other stories are told within the novel. Other episodes and stories, horrific stories, unusual stories, strange stuff. The Three Impostors was published in 1895. Now, Arthur Machen, I have this written down. Arthur Machen was born March 1863 and died December 1947. He was a very unusual writer. He had a tremendous imagination, and he was also very religious, and he was kind of a religious mystic. I mean, he believed a lot of, well, unusual things. And the things that frightened him, he put in his stories. And he makes them scary when you read them. He was the perfect guy, I think, to write this kind of stuff. I mean, because, this kind of stuff, it was real to him, Not that he believed that these were actual things that happened, but he did have some unusual beliefs and ideas. He was no big fan of progress at all. And he had just tremendous talent and imagination, like I say. So he wrote a series of really weird stories. His most popular and his most enduring story is The Great God Pan, which many consider to be one of the greatest horror stories ever written in English. And I would think, yeah, it merits that. It's a great story, The Great God Pan. But he wrote a lot of stuff besides that, including The Three Impostors, this really strange episodic novel, which most people have not read, even people who have read Arthur Machen. And the reason for that is that often over the years, in fact, ever since this was published, really, episodes from this have been taken out and published as individual stories. And they work perfectly for that. And Arthur Machen, he was pretty much fine with that, actually. But it's good to read the whole thing, because there's a lot of stuff in here that just never gets republished outside of the original novel. The most powerful parts of it, though, have been republished as short stories, individually. I mean, there are a couple episodes in this which are just so disturbing and creepy and genuinely frightening. It's really an interesting book. I mean, it has a lot of things in it. It's not just scary. It also occasionally can be kind of comic and adventurous. And there's a lot going on in this short little book. It superficially resembles Robert Louis Stevenson's New Arabian Nights, which we actually read the month before this for Roger's Cheapold Book Club. In style and the way it's set up, it kind of resembles New Arabian Nights. But it's so much weirder. It's just so much weirder. It tells the story of the three impostors. There are three impostors, and they are hunting the young man in spectacles. I know there are more than one of those, but they are hunting a particular young man who's wearing spectacles. Why are they hunting him? We don't know. What are they going to do to him when they catch him? We don't know, but we find out. And there are a couple characters in this who find out as well, including Dyson, Mr. Dyson, who is a character, if you read Arthur Machen, you would be familiar with, because Dyson reappears quite a few times in Arthur Machen's fiction. He's a recurring character. He's sort of a stand-in for Arthur Machen, but sort of not. He's not a supernatural investigator, really, although he sort of accidentally ends up sort of investigating supernatural things, or unusual things at least. And he is kind of a not so successful writer. And he spends a lot of his time wandering around London and getting himself into trouble. And he kind of does that in this story. Him and his friend, whose name I'm forgetting at this moment. I knew before I started this video, but now I can't remember. It's not really all that important. It's basically Dyson, Mr. Dyson, and Dyson's pal, who throughout the story get involved somewhat with the three impostors. Early in the story, they get kind of peripherally involved with the three impostors, while these three impostors are on their hunt for the young man in spectacles. And throughout the story, both of them, Dyson and his pal, run into the three impostors, each of the three impostors, which are two men and one woman who are all hunting the young man in spectacles. And each of the impostors tells them stories. And we never really know, as readers, whether these stories, which are ghastly and strange and unusual, we never know if these stories are true or if they're just something these imposters are making up. Now, the imposters, they are imposters, are the most unreliable of narrators. So there's really no reason you should believe anything that they say. But still, you wonder, is there any truth in the story to the stories that are told by the three imposters? It's a mystery. It's one of the many mysteries in this book. Now, the main mystery, which is the young man in spectacles and why the young man in spectacles is being hunted by the three imposters, that we find out. His ultimate fate, we find that out too. And there's some ghastly stuff in this story. It's really interesting, and it's really weird. It's just an oddity, the way it's told and the stories that it tells. It's small wonder that H.P. Lovecraft admired Arthur Machen so much. Arthur Machen was a very influential horror writer. And a lot of people who have read Arthur Machen, who are writers, have been influenced by him. Filmmakers have been influenced by Arthur Machen. He's just so creepy in some of his stories. And for me personally, The Three Impostors is one of his most effective series of stories, I guess. It's one of the most effective things that he wrote. He kept on writing after this for a long time, but it's his earlier stuff, the stuff that's written right around the period that it's covered in this book, and a little past it, that stuff is really effective. He kept on writing creepy things, but they tended to become a little less effective over time. His best stuff it was The Three Impostors, The Great God Pan, and a story called The White People, which is another really, really, really creepy story and so strange. That story is so strange. And those are the things that you'll find, at least pieces of them reprinted, in this case, over and over again in anthologies. And I think this guy's stuff will continue to influence writers because it is just so unique in some ways. It's an excellent book. I don't want to tell too much of the story other than what I've told. Because like I said, it has a bunch of individual episodes that if you've never read them, you really want to read them and you want to experience them for the first time for yourself. Because man, it's creepy stuff. So rereading this, I had read this before years ago. I liked it even more this time around, reading it for Roger's Teepold Book Club. I appreciate it more now that I'm an older fella and have read more horror and supernatural fiction. This guy, man, he's up there at the top, Arthur Machen. He's a legend among horror writers. And so this is a writer I will be talking more about in the future, in the fairly near future, I think. But for now, yeah, great book for Roger's Teepold Book Club, The Three Impostors. Roger picked a good one. Of course, this month, right at this very moment, it's June on the Range. It's June on the Range. Hold on a second. There we go. Yeah, so right now it's June on the Range. And at this very moment, many people, just millions of people, it's maybe a handful of people, are reading The Lone Star Ranger. This month, for June, I will talk more about this in a couple weeks. Hopefully I will get this review out on time. I already read this for this month. It's really, really good. Zane Grey Western novel from about 100 years ago. And it holds up really well as a Western novel from 100 years ago. This is, of course, like I just said, June on the Range. This whole month is devoted to reading Western fiction here on this channel, and a lot of other great booktubers are involved and are co-hosts and everything. So yeah, June on the Range. And this was Roger's pick for this month. Next month, Mary Shelley, the creator of Frankenstein. We will be reading The Last Man. He's the last man. That's what this story is about. It's about a deadly pandemic that sweeps the world and kills, well, damn near everybody. Everybody except the last man. So, yeah, dogs do all right. There's a dog there. Dogs do okay, I think. This will be an interesting one to read because, for one thing, it's much longer than the other books that we've read for Roger's Teepold Book Club. And I think it's going to be a good deal more challenging than some of the other books that we've read. I've heard mixed reports about this book, but I loved Frankenstein. I'm very interested in Mary Shelley as a person and as a writer, so I'm really looking forward to The Last Man. I don't know how many people will join me with this one, but we'll see. It's certainly going to be one of the more interesting picks, I think, for Roger's Teepold Book Club. So, you know what? Join us for The Last Man next month. And of course, there's still plenty of time to read The Lone Star Ranger. It's not all that long of a book, and it goes by really, really, really quick. So there you go. Roger's Teepold Book Club. I will catch you next time.